Ladies and gentlemen, when a man pulls away, it's easy to assume that something is wrong with you or that you did something to push him away. But the truth is, the dynamics between two people are far more complex than we often allow ourselves to see. The real reason he's pulling away might not even have anything to do with you directly. It could be a reflection of his own internal world, his fears or his need to feel a sense of independence. Understand that attraction isn't a one-way street. It doesn't solely rely on how much effort you put in or how much you chase after him. When you're emotionally attached to someone, when you're deeply invested in the outcome, it changes the energy. You may begin to give too much, seek too much, or need too much. And from that space of neediness or desperation, he starts to feel the pull of your energy rather than being drawn to it. This shift happens without you even realizing it. Your emotional investment, while coming from a place of care, can inadvertently create distance. The truth is, the more you focus on yourself and stop chasing after him, the more he'll start to sense a shift. It's not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about understanding that the best way to attract someone is to be fully aligned with yourself. When you no longer feel the need to constantly validate your worth through his attention or approval, you begin to step into a place of personal power. This shift in energy is magnetic. When you give yourself the space to live your life fully, to invest in your own growth, to cultivate your own sense of joy and fulfillment, you immediately become more attractive. Not because you're doing anything different, but because you're embodying a higher version of yourself. And when you radiate confidence, independence, and peace, you naturally pull him back in, because what he's craving isn't a need to fulfill him. It's a connection that comes from a place of shared energy and mutual respect. So, the first step to making him want you again is to stop focusing on him. Focus on yourself. Focus on your growth, your peace, your passion, and your own inner happiness. When you begin to align with your true self, you'll find that the energy shifts, and instead of feeling distant, he'll begin to feel drawn to the confident, empowered version of you. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding the power of your own energy and allowing that energy to naturally bring him back into your life. Attraction is a dynamic energy exchange, and it isn't solely dependent on how much effort one person puts in or how much attention they give. Often, the more you chase after someone, the more you actually push them away. When we are emotionally attached to someone and constantly seek their validation, we unconsciously project neediness. This projection can subtly create a shift in the energy between two people, causing one person to pull away. The moment that emotional investment becomes a desperate need for approval or attention, the connection becomes one-sided, and that's when the attraction starts to dwindle. Attraction thrives on a balance, not on force. When you begin to focus too much on the other person, on their reaction, their feelings, or on making them happy, you lose sight of your own personal energy. This shift makes you less magnetic. It's not that you've done something wrong. It's that you've inadvertently become out of alignment with your own self. Instead of being drawn to you, he feels the weight of your emotional energy and the subtle pressure of needing something from him. This can create distance, and in turn, it triggers the pullback. When you shift your focus back to yourself, when you focus on your passions, your growth, and your emotional well-being, you begin to embody an entirely different energy. Your independence becomes magnetic. You no longer seek validation outside of yourself, and instead, you create your own sense of fulfillment. This energetic shift brings you back into alignment with your authentic self, and that energy is what attracts others, including him. He will feel the shift and sense that you are no longer emotionally dependent on him to feel complete. Instead, you are whole on your own, and that's when true connection begins to flourish again. The key to attraction is not in chasing or trying to win someone over. It's about standing in your own power, cultivating self-love, and becoming the version of yourself who doesn't need someone else to validate her worth. This energy will draw him back in naturally, as the magnetic pull of self-confidence and independence is irrefutable. When you begin to focus on yourself, rather than constantly trying to seek validation from someone else, you start to shift your energy in a powerful way. This doesn't mean being self-centered or disregarding the other person. It means taking a step back and allowing yourself the space to grow. When you prioritize your own well-being, growth, and happiness, You become more attuned to who you are, and that energy is magnetic. Instead of focusing on what he is or isn't doing, you redirect that focus inward, giving attention to the things that make you feel alive, fulfilled, and complete. When you stop trying to make someone else responsible for your emotional state, you create a sense of inner peace and independence. This shift in energy has a profound effect on how others perceive you. The more you invest in your own life, the more attractive you become, not because you're trying to be, but because your energy is naturally aligned with your highest self. When you live for your own joy, pursue your passions, and prioritize your own emotional health, you become less concerned with external validation and more rooted in your own self-worth. As you invest in yourself and build a life that is rich in meaning and purpose, you create an environment where the need for approval from anyone, whether it's a partner, friend, or colleague, is no longer essential to your happiness. This inner peace and self-sufficiency make you less available for unnecessary emotional drama and more available for connections that come from a place of mutual respect, love, and appreciation. When you stop trying to impress or win someone over, you become more authentic. This authenticity is magnetic, and as you continue to align with your true self, the energy around you will naturally shift, drawing others, including him, closer. He will be drawn to the version of you who is no longer trying to gain his approval, but rather living in the fullness of her own life. When you stop seeking approval from others, especially someone you're emotionally invested in, you reclaim your personal power. This shift in energy allows you to operate from a place of emotional independence, which is incredibly magnetic. Often, when we are deeply attached to someone, we become overly focused on their actions or reactions, interpreting every gesture as a sign of their feelings or intentions. This constant monitoring of their behavior leads to emotional dependence, which can result in insecurity and a subtle shift in the dynamics of the relationship. When you remove the need for external validation, you stop reacting emotionally to every little thing. Instead, you create space within yourself to stand firm in your own worth and not rely on someone else to define it. This shift in focus is crucial because the more you focus on your own growth and happiness, the less you rely on another person to feel complete. You begin to feel secure in who you are, and this security becomes magnetic. It's not about trying to manipulate the situation or play games to get his attention. It's about showing up as your authentic self without the need for someone to affirm you. When you stop chasing someone's affection or approval, you automatically free up energy to focus on what truly matters: your life, your passions, your happiness. As you invest in yourself and detach from the outcome of any particular relationship, you begin to attract more of the right energy. People are naturally drawn to those who are emotionally whole and self-sufficient, because that energy exudes confidence and stability. The more you align with your own life's purpose and inner peace, the more you effortlessly draw in those who resonate with that energy. When you are truly at peace with who you are, you stop needing validation from anyone else, and that independence creates an energy that draws people in, especially those who are looking for a relationship built on mutual respect and admiration rather than dependency. When you stop needing someone's attention and start focusing on yourself, you create a shift in the energy around you. This doesn't mean cutting them off or becoming indifferent to their presence. It means shifting your focus from seeking their validation to nurturing your own sense of self-worth. People are drawn to those who are self-sufficient and emotionally grounded because they offer a sense of stability and independence, qualities that are naturally attractive. When you stop chasing after someone or trying to win their affection, the dynamic between you changes. You no longer place the power of your emotional state in their hands, and this autonomy makes you more compelling. By refocusing your energy on your own growth, your passions, and your life, you begin to cultivate a deeper sense of self-respect and inner confidence. This doesn't mean that you're withdrawing from the relationship or giving up on it. It means that you're choosing to invest in yourself first. When you stop seeking validation externally, you open up the space for the relationship to grow in a more authentic way. Instead of feeling like you're in constant pursuit, you become a magnet for genuine connections that align with your own personal energy. This shift also allows you to stop reacting emotionally to the ebb and flow of his behavior. When you're emotionally detached, you no longer take things personally or allow his actions to dictate how you feel. You become more resilient, able to maintain your emotional balance regardless of external circumstances. As you align with this sense of emotional independence, your internal peace radiates outward, naturally drawing him back in. The more you focus on your own personal development and emotional health, the more you stop depending on anyone else for your sense of completeness. This newfound strength and self-sufficiency make you incredibly attractive, not because you're trying to be, but because your energy has shifted to a place of inner power and confidence. When you stop attaching your happiness and sense of worth to someone else, you free yourself from the emotional roller coaster that comes with dependence. Often, when we're emotionally invested in someone, we tie our well-being to their actions, words, or behaviors. This emotional reliance creates a dynamic where we are constantly seeking approval or validation. The moment you release this attachment, you begin to regain control over your own emotional state. You no longer need to wait for someone to affirm your worth because you've learned to validate yourself first. This shift in mindset is crucial because when you stop seeking validation from someone else, you stop giving them the power to dictate your emotional state. Instead of waiting for him to reach out, respond, or make you feel special, you start focusing on what makes you feel complete on your own. You begin to nurture your own desires, passions, and goals, and that self-sufficiency radiates outward. People are naturally drawn to those who are secure in themselves because they exude confidence and stability. When you stop needing someone to fill a gap within you, you become more attractive. This emotional independence also gives you the freedom to act from a place of clarity, not desperation. When you stop attaching emotions to every small interaction, you can approach relationships from a more grounded perspective. You understand that your worth is not contingent upon his behavior, and this realization gives you peace. You become less reactive and more thoughtful in your responses, allowing the relationship to evolve naturally without the pressure of needing it to be a certain way. As you shift your focus from seeking validation to nurturing your own growth, you begin to attract a higher level of connection. You no longer need to chase affection or approval because your energy has transformed. You no longer seek to impress. You simply show up as your best, most authentic self, which is the most magnetic version of you. When you start to focus less on what he's doing and more on what you can create for yourself, you unlock a new level of personal power. This shift in focus allows you to break free from the pattern of chasing after someone or depending on their attention for validation. Often, when we're deeply invested in someone, we attach our emotional well-being to their actions or responses. We think that if they're distant or if things aren't moving the way we want, it's a reflection of our worth. But the truth is, their actions are often a result of their own internal world and not a reflection of who you are or what you bring to the table. When you stop seeking external validation and begin to focus on cultivating your own sense of self-worth, something shifts within you. You start to operate from a place of emotional stability and inner peace, and that's the kind of energy that others are naturally drawn to. Instead of feeling anxious, uncertain, or dependent on someone else's actions to determine your happiness, you begin to ground yourself in the fact that you are already complete. You stop chasing, and instead, you allow things to unfold naturally. As you focus on nurturing yourself, your passions, your growth, and your purpose, you become less available for unnecessary emotional turbulence. You stop seeking constant approval and validation from external sources. This shift is incredibly attractive because people are drawn to those who are self-sufficient, confident, and emotionally independent. When you focus on your own personal development, you stop giving away your energy to people or situations that don't serve your highest good. By realigning with your own energy, you start to exude a sense of peace and confidence that's magnetic. You are no longer trying to win someone over or force an outcome. Instead, you become a person who is whole, independent, and emotionally secure. This transformation allows you to attract genuine connections, relationships that are built on mutual respect, admiration, and emotional availability, rather than dependency or validation seeking. When you stop focusing on trying to manipulate the situation and instead turn your attention inward, you begin to create a sense of emotional freedom that is incredibly powerful. Many times we put so much energy into trying to figure out what's going wrong or how to fix things with someone we're emotionally invested in. We seek answers in their behavior, words, or actions, thinking that if we can just get the right response, everything will fall into place. But the real power comes when you stop focusing on the other person's behavior and start focusing on your own energy. When you let go of the need to control or force a certain outcome, you align yourself with a higher level of consciousness. Instead of reacting to every little thing or trying to please someone else, you begin to cultivate an inner peace and emotional stability that radiates outward. This inner calm attracts others to you, not because you're chasing them, but because you're grounded in your own sense of self-worth. When you stop trying to please or win someone's affection, you stop giving them the power to dictate your emotional state. You become free from the emotional turbulence that often comes with dependency. As you focus on your own growth, passions, and well-being, you naturally begin to shift your energy. The more you invest in yourself, the less you need from others to feel validated. This emotional independence is magnetic because people are drawn to those who don't seek to fill a void with others. Instead, they're drawn to individuals who are already whole and complete in themselves. When you detach from the outcome and stop obsessing over someone else's behavior, you take back control over your own energy. This emotional independence doesn't mean you stop caring or engaging in relationships. It means that you're no longer waiting for someone's approval to define your happiness. By shifting your energy inward, you naturally allow the people around you to feel the change. And that's when real, authentic connections start to form. When you start to detach from the need for constant attention and approval, you free yourself from the emotional entanglement that often clouds the clarity of relationships. Many times we get so emotionally invested in someone that their every action or inaction begins to define how we feel about ourselves. We look for signs, constantly checking if they're paying attention, if they're calling or texting, if they're showing enough interest to prove we matter. But the key to creating lasting and meaningful attraction lies in shifting away from this reactive pattern. When you stop depending on their response for your emotional validation, you immediately begin to reclaim your power and sense of self. As you let go of this emotional dependency, you start to operate from a space of emotional freedom. You no longer seek constant reassurance or chase after someone's attention. Instead, you create a life where your happiness doesn't hinge on another person's behavior. This shift changes the energy you put out into the world. You become less consumed by the need to seek validation, and more focused on nurturing your own happiness and sense of purpose. This emotional independence becomes magnetic because it shows that you're not emotionally reliant on anyone to feel whole. This shift also allows you to be more present in your own life. When you focus on developing your own passions, goals, and personal growth, you create an environment that fosters confidence and self-assurance. You begin to attract people who align with this energy, those who appreciate your authenticity and strength. Instead of chasing after someone's affection, you become someone who draws others in through your ability to stand confidently in your own life. This energy shift is subtle yet incredibly powerful. When you detach from the outcome and stop obsessing over someone's attention, you give both yourself and the relationship space to evolve naturally. This emotional freedom allows for genuine connections to take place, where both people are emotionally balanced and whole, creating the foundation for a deeper, more authentic relationship. When you stop seeking constant reassurance from others, especially in romantic relationships, you create a profound shift in the dynamic. So often, we tie our worth to how much attention or affection someone else is giving us. We think that if they're distant or not as engaged, it's somehow a reflection of our value. This mindset can lead to emotional imbalance, where we become overly dependent on external validation. When you release this need for constant approval, you begin to operate from a place of emotional sovereignty. Instead of being affected by every text or every slight change in their behavior, you become grounded in your own sense of self. This emotional detachment is not about becoming cold or indifferent to the person. It's about focusing on your own emotional well-being and realizing that your happiness doesn't depend on someone else's behavior. When you invest time and energy into your personal growth, your passions, and your own life outside of the relationship, you begin to realign with your authentic self. This inner peace and independence create a magnetic energy. People are naturally drawn to individuals who are comfortable in their own skin, who do not rely on others to feel complete. When you are no longer dependent on someone's attention to feel secure, you create space for true connection. Instead of anxiously waiting for a response, you are focused on building your life, and that focus on yourself naturally attracts people who resonate with your energy. If this shift makes you more desirable because your energy no longer feels needy or desperate, but rather balanced and self-sufficient. When you stop seeking external validation and start embracing your own worth, the dynamic between you and others changes for the better. The more you prioritize your own emotional health, the more naturally relationships grow, built on mutual respect and admiration, not on neediness. When you stop constantly trying to win someone over or chase after their affection, you create a powerful shift in your own energy. Often, we become so focused on what someone else thinks of us that we lose sight of our own needs, desires, and self-worth. We think that if we can just get their attention or make them notice us more, everything will fall into place. But the truth is, the more you focus on trying to manipulate someone else's feelings, the more you push them away. People are naturally drawn to those who are self-assured and emotionally independent, not to those who are desperately seeking validation. When you stop focusing on the other person's behavior and instead start focusing on your own life, passions, and growth, you begin to realign with your authentic self. This shift in focus allows you to stop reacting to the ups and downs of someone else's behavior. Instead of feeling anxious or uncertain every time they pull away or don't respond right away, you begin to cultivate emotional stability and inner peace. When you stop relying on someone else's actions to define how you feel, you create space for a more balanced relationship, one built on mutual respect and emotional security. You are no longer dependent on someone else's behavior to feel good about yourself, and this emotional independence is magnetic. As you start to nurture your own life and grow into the best version of yourself, you naturally start to attract people who resonate with that energy. When you stop trying to impress or seek approval from someone, you become more attractive. Not because you're trying to be, but because your energy is aligned with self-respect and self-love. This shift in energy creates a new dynamic in your relationships. Instead of pursuing someone, you allow the relationship to unfold naturally, based on a foundation of emotional independence and mutual attraction. When you stop trying to force things, you create the space for true connection to occur.